Okay, so there's a lot going on in the house at this point in time. My house guests are in the other room using a couple of the computers in a church service, and I'm here holed up in my bedroom so I can do this lesson this morning. We are on lesson 60, the last of the review lessons of the first part of A Course in Miracles. And you know, I am really grateful that I've been given the opportunity to do this, simply because it opens my mind and it helps me express some things that I'm coming to learn and I've been experiencing, so that the healing of my own mind can continue. And you know, we can experience the joy of salvation together. So in today's lessons, God is the love in which I forgive. God is the strength in which I trust. There is nothing to fear. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. I am sustained by the love of God. It was interesting when I read the sequence today, that he puts these lessons together with God is the love in which I forgive, God is the strength in which I trust. And then, you know, which seems to be, and God's voice speaks to me, that I am sustained by the love of God. And in the middle of those lessons, lesson 48, the review of lesson 48, is there's nothing to fear. You know, there's nothing to fear. How safe the world will look to me when I can see it. It will not look anything like what I imagine I see now. Everyone and everything I see will lean toward me to bless me. I will recognize in everyone my dearest friend. What could there be to fear in a world that I have forgiven and that has forgiven me? I'm not sure I know how to teach this or express it the way I would like to, but what I begin to understand is this. You know, as we do forgive ourselves, the situations that we need in our life to bring up the need for forgiveness no longer have to show up for us, so that the fearful situations and relationships, let's say, and the relationships within the situations, as we heal our mind and as we forgive ourselves, we keep on extracting more and more of what it is that we have been afraid of within the world of space and time. So therefore, the situations that are required for our healing, the situations that the reflections that we get that are required for our healing, no longer have to show up within the images of the illusion that we seem to be in. So it does become a safer place, simply because we no longer attract that which requires forgiveness, and we begin to experience more and more that which we can love and have extended love to through our forgiveness. I don't know if I'm being very clear about this, but you know, our lack of safety in the world, all of which, the entirety of which, is an illusion. The entire world, even the forgiven world and the real world, so to speak, is an illusion as well. But forgiveness is a way for which we can enter into a happy dream within the dream of death. And if we're going to be dreamers and eventually dream our way out of the dream back into the reality of the kingdom of heaven itself, we must The mandate is to stop being afraid of anything, because eventually we have to lose our fear of everything, which is what reality is. Now, reality isn't little bits and pieces and parts like the illusion seems to be, but the illusion is where we're presented. The dream of death is where we're presented with the false ideas that we've accumulated and stored up in the body. Remember, Jesus says the body is composed of memories of the past, which have yet to be forgiven. And as Jesus says, as Jesus says in Absence from Felicity to Helen, when they laid the body in the tomb, and they eventually went back after 3 days to look for Jesus, there was nothing to find, because he no longer had any illusions about himself and about the body. So there was no longer an illusionary body to be found in a world of illusion. And ultimately, as we pursue our function within the plan for atonement, we forgive ourselves our illusions of what we seem to be here in space and time. And ultimately, when all of us have successfully forgiven it, the world, along with our bodies, will be much like what Jesus says. We will no longer have any illusions about ourselves and about the world, so there will be nothing left to it in that sense, and all that will be is the remembrance and the recognition of the eternal condition of who we are in the kingdom. And that's where we're all headed, and that's what we're all headed to. Now that requires of each and every one of us the willingness to look at what is unforgiven in ourselves and utilize the reflection that we're getting in admissions that there are still things that are unforgiven. There's no crime in it. There's no sin to it. As a matter of fact, it's what we were created to do. Forgiveness as an action of mind runs parallel to creation. And there's a great section in the Course where Jesus talks about parallel lines converging on the ultimate horizon. The curve brings the lines together and they converge, and that's what we call infinity. Parallel lines converge in infinity, and we're beginning to be able to see the infinite in ourselves and in reality. And the more we can see the infinite in ourselves and in reality, the more access, or the closer the point in time when we all release ourselves from the illusions that we've held and have been stored up in our bodies and in the world as the physicality of the world of space and time, so that illusions will be no longer. So as we progress in our occupations as miracle workers and saviors of the world, as we forgive through the utilization of the reflections that we're getting from the projection of this world of space and time, as we forgive ourselves and our brothers for the erroneous projections, the erroneous thinking that our projections can show us we're still involved in, those erroneous projections and ideas become removed from the mind that is projecting space and time, so that we no longer have to repeat the situations over and over again, so we don't bring to us, we don't attract that which hurts us to us any longer. When Jesus, in the initial part of my awakening in Revelation, when Jesus said to me, you don't have to do this anymore because you're doing it to yourself, that was a very happy moment. I realized in that moment that ultimately, not only was I saved, but that we've all been saved. But through the understanding that I get through the utilization of Jesus' words and teaching in A Course in Miracles, I understand that while that moment temporarily revealed the totality of the discovery, the great discovery that we are all been saved, that may appear to occur in its finality somewhere off in space and time, the truth goes with me wherever I go. So the recognition of that being true now allows me to be in a condition of hope most of the time, even in a sense, it's what some of you become to rely on. Okay, right now I may still require some forgiveness for what the illusions I am holding, but ultimately I know that we all come to the point where we've forgiven all of our illusions, because reality remains unchanged and we are a whole perfect part of that reality. And that's the good news. The good news was, if I did this to myself, then I can undo what I did by following the directions and the guidance that's been given to me. And there's much hope when Jesus says, don't be fooled by continuing symptoms. If the end has been revealed to you, and I'm sure many of you who have undergone revelation have experienced the end being revealed to you. What Jesus says is, in order to make this end occur in a seeming more rapid way, while we can't eliminate the time in which the totality of this occurs, we can shorten our need for time till the end of the totality is here and now. So as we hold it in our mind as an ever-present possibility, as an ever-present certainty in the possibility of the healing of our mind, and we allow ourselves the ability to not condemn ourselves with what we see, to not judge ourselves by what we see and what we experience, but to utilize rather than constantly analyze, to utilize what we see in a way that forgiveness occurs. God is the love in which I forgive. God is the strength in which I trust. There is nothing to fear. God speaks to me. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. I am sustained by the love of God. As we learn to rely on the certainty that's brought to us in these lessons, which is the certainty of the forgiven mind of Jesus, of Christ Jesus, and make no mistakes about it, you too are the Christ, along with him. You too have been blessed by the love of God with the ability to forgive, because forgiveness is the way we remember God. And I'm certain that now we all have had experience of forgiveness, so we're not confused or hindered by the idea that we can't forgive. It may be true that certain situations are so ingrained and we've become so habituated in our response and so, how should I say it, concretized by our past lack of forgiveness. It may be true that we need situations to bring us to our knees so we can finally surrender once again and allow the grace of God to heal us of the necessity to repeat that situation by our choice and a desire, total desire, to no longer require the need to hurt ourselves. I don't know what each and every one of us needs. I never know what it is I need, because I never perceive my own best interests alone. I'm in a condition of sickness and suffering and pain. It is the idea that I am alone. Yet, the best news I ever heard within the world of space and time remains. You were doing this to yourself. And along with that comes the recognition, if I did it to myself, I can undo this. This I did unto myself, so this I can undo. I've been given that power because it is an illusion. And I can go back to a point where I instituted the lack of forgiveness, the love lack, and reintroduce love through forgiveness into that situation and have it be forgiven and extracted from the cycle of life the cycle of sojourn into darkness that I'm in, so as not to have to repeat it again. And ultimately, there will come a time when each and every one of us has forgiven to the totality of the degree necessary for none of this to have seemed to exist at all, and the end will preclude the beginning from ever occurring, and we will turn to our natural state within the kingdom, with no ability for anyone, anything, anywhere to ever have to repeat this sojourn at all. And if that's not a happy prospect, I don't know what is, especially based on some of the stuff we've put ourselves through. We've been given, through the workbook of A Course in Miracles and the Course in Miracles itself, we've been given, through the resurrection of Jesus, another purpose for this world, other than to come here to get sick, to get old, and die. To be imprisoned and victim to that which we've inflicted upon ourselves. We've been given the tools now. And in the maturation of the species is the utilization of these tools. Yet within the dream that you dream, that no one can dream you out of but yourself, the utilization of these tools is required for that to occur. So at some point, let's get together and celebrate the joy of what we've been given. Bless us, Father, for these thy gifts which we are about to receive. I know, in your heart of hearts, none of us would hold grievances when we recognize the price that they cost us and that we pay. So the ability to find and forgive ourselves for the grievances that we hold become the joy of forgiveness that we experience. And God is the love in which I forgive. And in each moment of forgiveness, we recognize that love. That's what this lesson is going to say. It will bring me near enough to heaven that the love of God can reach down to me and raise me up to Him. It is not my own strength through which I forgive. It is the strength of God in me. It says it's the strength of God in me, not that I am God and strong. It is the strength of God within me. And in order to experience that strength, we must withdraw the strength that we give the ego in its need to defend and defy, and allow us to sink down below that into where God's strength exists in us and is held for us in surety and certainty and safety. And how safe will the world look to me when I can see it for what it is? When I can free myself from the thought that it's a prison and it's a place where I've been denied love and joy, and begin to recognize the truth about myself and about my brother. So today being Sunday, let's celebrate. Even if we're in conditions that still require forgiveness, let's celebrate that there is nothing to fear, that through forgiveness and the utilization of God's voice, as He directs each and every one of us personally, we can discover the illusions that we still hold about ourselves and free ourselves from those illusions. So in the next instant, much like Jesus, who said, there was nothing left to bury because I held no illusions about myself. There'll be nothing left of the illusion of a world of space and time because there's no longer any illusions I want to hold about you or myself, nor you would hold about me and myself or the rest of your brothers. So go forth and utilize the tools that we've been given. Sometimes, a friend of mine once said, the only way you get to forgiveness is by trying everything else before it so that there's nothing left for you to do. In moments of desperation, we finally give out our ability to keep forgiveness at bay and allow it to occur. Whatever it takes is what it takes. And whatever it takes is what you've both given yourself and what God has granted you. That is His gift to us. Forgiveness is His gift to us because He is the love in which we forgive, and He is the love in which we've been created. and the great love that God has for his Son is the nature of our being and the nature of each other. So thanks for this moment.